Dear friends, I'm operator Starsky reporting on day 1160 of Russia's war. Let's talk about the most important updates of the week. Spectacular explosion at some of the biggest Russian ammo storages. 14th Russian general met his demise in Russia. Trump called Putin to stop in the social media. Spoiler, didn't work. DPRK officially admitted its participation in Russia's war against Ukraine. Austria supports Ukrainian kids, and Putin declared another fake ceasefire. My dear friends, this is the Frontline Focus. Let's roll. Let's start with our traditional Frontline review, my friends. 168 Russian attacks were recorded over the past 24 hours, with the most intensive fighting taking place around Pokrovsk. Yesterday, Ukrainian defenders stopped 64 attacks in this area. Also, 20 Russian attacks were deflected near Liman. In Kupiansk, it was a bit more quiet compared to last week, same in Chasiv Yar, of course considering 16 attacks that took place here yesterday. We keep monitoring situation in the north, Sumy and Chernihiv, where the Russian invaders prepare their upcoming advance that is expected around summer. Yesterday, Kremlin together with Pyongyang announced successful liberation of Kursk region from Ukrainian troops. However, it was debunked by Russians themselves. Ukrainian troops keep their presence in the bordering area of the Russian Kursk, with 23 Russian attacks deflected yesterday. Meanwhile, in a different region of Russia, Bryansk, the Russian Kremny L military factory has been hit for the 5th time already. This factory is known for producing electronics for the Russian Iskander missiles, as well as air defense complexes, drones and other equipment. Yesterday, happy Russian citizens of Bryansk witnessed at least 10 explosions, indicating that the Russian so-called special military operation apparently doesn't look really good. However, the most spectacular explosion took place earlier last week, where almost 270,000 tons of weaponry decided to go off in an impressive firework. The Russians announced evacuation of a number of neighboring villages because all the weaponry that was stockpiled in this ammo depot, instead of being launched at Ukrainians, got scattered around the local Russian villages. You know, I don't consider myself an extremely religious person, but the life just keeps proving that karma exists. For instance, on 25th of April, another notorious Russian war criminal got toasted in the peaceful Russian town of Balashikha. I'm talking about the Russian General Moskalik, who, by the way, became already 2nd Russian Lieutenant General and 14th Russian General overall, who contributed to this remarkable list of the Russian general lost during the Russian aggression against Ukraine. According to the available footage, the Russian General Moskalik became good in his car, and I should really explain why exactly it happened. You see, Russian General Moskalik, who served, by the way, as a deputy chief of the operative command of the Russian General Staff, was directly responsible for the regular planning, coordination, and assessment for the long-range missile strikes against Ukraine. His responsibilities also involved such delicate things as selection of targets. Just so you know, this very man was directly responsible for the terror Russian strikes on Ukrainian civilians in Kryvyi Rih, Sumy, Kyiv and Kharkiv and other places. This very individual had absolutely clear understanding of what he was striking and who exactly lost their lives due to the strikes that he prepared himself. And his spectacular demise was a direct result of striking apartment houses and children playgrounds in Ukraine. My friends, war criminals will be punished no matter who they are, where they are, proved by Ukraine. Today, internationally wanted war criminal Putin announced another fake ceasefire that will take place on 9th of May in Russia. That is the day when the Russian population wears their children in military uniforms, massively drinks vodka, and does cringy things I cannot explain. The last time the Russian so-called Easter ceasefire happened, it resulted in almost 3,000 cases of combat, all around the front lines with a massive missile and drone attack already next day. And I think this is something really important to understand. Russians spent tremendous resources and funds on building missiles and drones to strike Ukrainian civilians, because this is what they do, and generally this is what makes them Russians. Such so-called ceasefires are nothing but Russian attempts to accumulate enough drones and missiles for a bigger strike, nothing else. But in the media, of course, it sounds really good. A ceasefire. At the same time, last month Ukraine actually offered an unconditional 30-day ceasefire, which was completely rejected by the Russian terrorists for a very simple reason. Russia doesn't really want a ceasefire, my friends. Russia didn't invade Ukraine because they wanted peace. I think it's clear. And apparently the US President Trump also starts to slowly understand this fact. That's why he made a crucial step towards settling the war in Ukraine. He didn't sanction Russia, of course. He didn't give Ukraine more missiles to protect its sky. In fact, he did something much more important. He wrote Vladimir Stop in his social media. Friends, I'm just an amateur. Please let me know in the comments if you think it will actually work, okay? And prior to this powerful gesture, Donald Trump stated that Ukraine should and most probably will donate part of its territory to Russian invaders, in particularly Crimea, annexed by the Russian terrorists in 2014, which obviously indicates current US administration's deep knowledge of the situation and enormous respect for the international law. Anyways, the notorious half-man, half-dying horse Sergei Lavrov, wasting his time as terror Russia's foreign minister, in his recent interview to the Belarusian television, shared Kremlin's demands to Ukraine. One more time, he underscored that Russia attacked Ukraine because it wanted Ukraine's territories like Donetsk, Luhansk, Crimea, Kherson and Zaporizhia. They want those territories to be recognized as Russian land. In addition, they want Ukraine to cancel its intentions to join NATO. In addition, Russia wants Ukraine to be demilitarized in order to make future invasions easier. And also Russia rejects the idea of Zaporizhia nuclear power plant to be transferred back under Ukraine's control. Quoting the White House, the peace deal has never been closer. For many months, Kremlin and North Korea rejected all accusations regarding the North Korean troops being involved in war against Ukraine. However, as I already mentioned, yesterday both North Korean dictator and Russian dictator and internationally wanted war criminal Putin already admitted North Korean involvement in this war. And you know, I should remind you why I always call Putin an internationally wanted war criminal. It's because he's wanted by the International Crime Court for kidnapping and forcefully deporting Ukrainian children. As of today, approximately 20,000 children of Ukraine were kidnapped by the Russian military and indoctrinated in the Russian military camps for kids. Some of them were already adopted by Russians, of course, against their will and against the law. Last week, one more European country officially joined the effort of returning Ukrainian kids home. The Austrian Parliament unanimously adopted a resolution in support of Ukraine's children, jointly submitted by 4 of country's leading political parties. Austria calls for further support for Ukrainian children in accordance with the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, emphasizing active participation in the return of children abducted by Russia and in holding those responsible accountable. The resolution also highlights that Russia's ongoing attacks threaten the lives of millions of Ukrainian children and that their return and protection must remain a priority on the international agenda. With that, my dear friends and family, I wish you all a beautiful day. Please subscribe to stay informed about the most important updates and share this content to help Ukraine be heard. I'll see you in the commentaries. I'm Operator Starsky. As always, be safe.